How do we do this then? We use a three-phase process. First, we extract or reverse engineer the metadata out of our Salesforce database using the Safyr tool. Secondly, we export the key information that we want from the Safyr tool into an ERwin data model. Finally, we then publish the ERwin data model using the ERwin Web Portal to be able to communicate with our business users. We use the Safyr tool to extract all the metadata out of our Salesforce application. We do this by connecting to the Salesforce environment, extracting all the relevant metadata, not only the physical metadata, but also the logical metadata. We then take this metadata that we've extracted out of our Salesforce application, separate it into distinguishable subject areas. We can then navigate, interrogate, and understand the metadata that we've extracted from the Salesforce, and then we push it into a ERwin data model. Once we have all this metadata in our ERwin data modeler, we can then use the tool to be able to manipulate the diagrams, lay them out according to the way we would like to view it. We can also add and change and manipulate the tables and the columns within the ERwin data modeler to be able to reflect any future changes that we plan to implement in our Salesforce environment. Once we have the laid out ERwin data model, we can then publish it to the ERwin Web Portal. This will allow our business users to be able to navigate, search, and discover the metadata that came from our Salesforce environment. So let's better understand the tools we're going to be using. First is Safyr. Safyr is the industry's only dedicated metadata discovery software for packaged applications. Safyr gives analysts, architects, and other data professionals the ability to access, understand, share, and utilize the underlying data structures for those applications whenever they need to, without having to rely on technical specialists, external consultants, incomplete documentation, internet searches, or partial technical solutions. Next is the ERwin Data Modeler. ERwin Data Modeler is an industry-leading data modeling solution that provides a simple, visual interface to manage your complex data environments. The ERwin Data Modeler family of products is made up of a number of distinct editions that are designed to meet the needs of a variety of stakeholders across the organization. Lastly is the ERwin Web Portal. The ERwin Web Portal provides a simple, customizable, web-based interface that allows both business and technical users across the organization to easily visualize the important metadata information that is stored in ERwin Data Modeler and beyond. The ERwin Web Portal allows easy access to information via the web with a variety of presentation and search formats to cater to a wide range of users in the organization. Lastly, I just want to talk about Sandhill Consultants. We are a group of people, products, and processes that help our clients to build comprehensive data architectures, resulting from a persistent data management process founded on a robust data governance practice to provide trusted, verifiable data for our clients. Now that you know a bit about the components we're going to be using in the demo, and also know a bit about ourselves, Let's actually go into the demo itself. First off, for our demo, we're going to look at the unique tool called Safyr. Safyr is a tool to be able to extract all the metadata from our Salesforce environment into a user interface to be able to manipulate it, to be able to make it ready to export to an Irwin data model. Within the Safyr tool, we need to be able to first configure our environment, our repository, where we're going to store this information from our ERP solution. Notice it only pulls in the metadata. It does not pull in any of the Salesforce data itself. But by configuring our repository where we're going to be storing it, we then define our connection to our database for both the repository and for the Salesforce environment. And using the wizard, you'll be able to define your configuration to be able to extract that data and where you're going to store the metadata in your Safyr repository. Now, once you've actually defined your repository, we need to actually open up the particular repository. And once we've got it open, it prompts us with 3 different layers of information or manipulation that we can perform. The first is the discovery phase. This is where we load the data from your Salesforce environment into your repository. For this particular demo, I'm not going to go through the steps to be able to do the loading of the data into our repository. This has already been done prior to our demo, and we've already got it preloaded with all the metadata from our repository. Next is our scoping phase. This is where we define what we want to do, what areas of interest we have, and how we're going to be able to group these bits of information, tables, into something meaningful to be able to export it to our Irwin data model tool. But before we go too far into the exporting manipulation, I just want to give us a quick roundup of the Safyr tool. And first, we're going to see a list of all the tables in our Safyr environment. Notice the ability to be able to search and limit our search based on specific objects. We're going to use a wildcard of all particular tables that exist in our Salesforce demo data. What is important to note, it has returned 256 records. So it tells us how many tables we've got in our environment. You'll also notice that it'll give us the physical table name and also a short description, which is equivalent to our logical data names. It'll also tell us the type of table we are looking at. You'll notice these are all standard tables that we've done the extract on, because this has come from a standard Salesforce environment. But any custom tables that you maybe have created in your Salesforce environment will also be imported into this Safyr tool, and you will notice that they are custom tables. We will also notice that we have some other information to understand in our environment, like number of children tables, number of parent tables, the row count. So we can straight away start seeing how many tables have been populated. Bearing in mind this is demo data, so we've got very limited amount of information, but as you can see, we have pulled in that relevant information. Through that, we can also explore any views, any data elements, and any domains. So through this, we can be able to understand our particular environment. I want to go through one step further and allow us to be able to look at a multi-object search. So if we go into the multi-object search, very similar concept in place where we can do a search. But the difference between a multi-object search you'll notice it will list any domains with the name selected, and it will also do any of our tables and any type of objects that we store in our repository. Notice that we've got 0 views, but we've got 458 data elements, 458 domains, and our 256 tables. But 256 tables might be too much to put in a subject area. We want to limit our subject area to something like account. So by using our search capability, we can limit the amount of returned objects to just those specific objects that we're looking for. By clicking on any of the particular objects, we can right-click on it, go to the detail section, and we can actually see the detail information for our account table. We can see any of the fields that are associated with that account table, and by being able to scroll through them, we can actually notice using the icon on the left-hand side, which are relationships, and which ones are our primary keys. We can then go to any particular field and go and discover any of the field objects. And by being able to see here, we can see this field is called Billing City. But we have also pulled in the logical name for Billing City. We've also pulled in all the information about the data element, the domain information, the data type, and other technical information that is relevant to that particular object. So by doing this, we can explore all of the information related to our account table. We can also explore any relationships. And we can then go to any of our particular relationships, and we will notice that we've got a parent and child information about the columns. We've got the parent table information, the type of relationship we've got, and should we want to drill into the parent table, we can even drill in to find out about the parent table. So using this functionality, we can actually explore our environment, our Salesforce environment, understand all of our information in our Salesforce environment, and be able to explore it to be able to understand what we want to add to our subject area. Notice that it also be able to pull in information about our indexes. So it is a very rich set of metadata about our Salesforce implementation. For this particular exercise, I want to actually take us through the steps that we would go through and to be able to achieve an extract, to be able to put it into our Irwin data model. Now, to be able to do that, we must be able to understand and search for the particular objects that we're looking for. And I'm just going to use our 6 objects that we've actually created from our search results. And I'm now going to go and add these to a new subject area. Subject areas are subsets of information in our environment that we want to define for a particular purpose. So we're going to add these 6 tables to a new subject area. Notice it will pop up with a wizard to ask us what we want to name our new subject area. And for this exercise, we're going to call this our account information. And we're going to say we're going to create our subject area for our account information. Notice there's our account information subject area, and those 6 tables that we pull through from our search results are now reflective in our subject area. We can then go back and do further searching, and I'm just going to use a wildcard search this time. And we are going to once again go back to our tables, and let's say we want to find anything to do with our case as well. And we find case, we can actually drill into our case and be able to go and navigate our information. I want to now look at how many relationships I've got, and our case is related to our account ID in our account table. That's exactly what I want to see. But I notice we've also got some other information coming in from some other tables. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create another subject area called our case information. But we're going to first search on anything with the word case in it. So we're going to return a set of tables containing 13 tables. And this time I want to create a new subject area for our case information. So this time we're going to use the subject area editor, and we're going to create our subject area for our case information. Notice there's no members in it, but we're going to take case comment, contact role, our case history, and case solution, case status. And those are the tables we want to include in our particular subject area. So I've selected a subset of my results from our object search, right-clicking on it, and we're going to add those 6 objects, which happen to be our tables, to our subject area called case information. So you'll notice that we've just added those 6 tables that we had highlighted in our particular environment. So through that, we can actually explore and can expand further on the subject areas that we would like to work with. In our particular demo, I'm going to stop at that point, and we are comfortable with our 2 subject areas that we've created. And I'm going to just close that down quickly. So that is our scoping capability. Notice we can drill into our subject areas from within our dashboard. Very nice, neat dashboard to be able to navigate through the various steps we want to work through. And from here, we're going to move on to our delivery phase. Our delivery phase is the exportation of those subject areas. So we're going to export our subject areas. And note once again the use of the wizards to be able to step us through the processes that we are working with. And we are going to add our account information, and we're also going to add our case information subject areas. So we want to export both subject areas, so we can pull in multiple subject areas into our Irwin model. And further to that, we will go through the next step, which will define what type of output we want to generate from our extraction and our export. So we've defined that we want to move it out to an Irwin data model. Notice there are various other options available. We want to export it as a version 9.x Irwin data model file. We can also define what type of notation we want to use. I like to use information engineering, so I will stick with that. And we're going to give us our name for our particular extract and export, and we're going to call this our Salesforce information. And the last section here is what we want to actually happen after we've done the extract and export. Now the export will export it to an Irwin file, and we've rightfully set up that we're going to open up our copy of Irwin and navigate in Irwin that particular model that we've just created. So by going through the wizard, we will go through to the next phase. The next phase defines what we're going to extract over and above the tables that we have selected in our subject areas. Now, bearing in mind all tables have relationships, and those relationships between our tables might be significant for our extract, and we want to be able to understand those relationships and where they go to. And through this, we can define that we want any parent relationships to also include the tables that they are in the parent relationships. Notice the ability to limit it to identifying and non-identifying relationships, and the level that we want to go to. For this particular demo, I'm just going to go to one level to our parents, And likewise, our child relationships, we can also define what level we want to go to and the type of relationships. We can select either identifying relationships or all relationships. I'm going to stick with all relationships. And the last section we have in our wizard is to define whether we want to limit the number of entities we're going to export. So we can set it to a particular number of entities. In this particular example, I'm going to set it as 0 for no limit. So it will export anything that fits the criteria of being in our subject area and being in one level of a parent to any object in our subject area, or one level of a child of any object in our subject area. The last section that we will notice here is the ability to include tables that are containing data. Now this is a very valuable switch to be able to switch on. If you're trying to extract anything in your production environment and you've pulled in the number of tables or number of rows in our tables, we can then identify those particular tables that are containing data. And we can exclude anything that doesn't contain data. So that way we can actually limit our focus of what we put into our Irwin data model is only tables that we are working with. Those tables that we are not using in our ERP or our Salesforce environment will not be included in this export into Irwin. Whether it's in the subject area or in a parent or child table, it will limit us to only those valid tables that contain data. For our particular exercise, I'm going to include anything that doesn't even have data in it or anything that does have data in it. This typical example might be when we're going to do some development work. We want to see what tables are out there to be able to hold the information that we want to work with. So by using that type of scenario, we can then say we don't want to limit it only to tables that include data. And the next step is to start the export. This will actually go ahead and go through all those tables, all the information in our Safyr environment, then start creating an Irwin data model, and then allow us to be able to open up our Irwin data model in our Irwin tool. And to do that, we're going to say OK to export, to open it in our Irwin data model tool, and we will have everything in our Irwin data model. This now brings us to the second part of our demo, which is the Irwin data modeling tools side of the demo. Now, once we've got all these tables in our particular environment, we will then be able to manipulate our diagrams to effectively represent what we want to do, what we want to see, and what we want to publish to the Irwin portal. In this part of the demo, we're going to just quickly explore a couple of the basic features in Irwin to be able to understand how we can actually manipulate our diagrams in our Irwin data modeler to best reflect what we want in our portal diagrams. Now, first off, you'll notice it's just imported all the tables one on top of each other. And I'm just going to lay that out nice and neatly. And we're going to zoom to fit all of our objects in our particular environment. Notice that we are now sitting in our case information subject area as it came from our Safyr environment. Notice that it is limited just to the tables we have selected. We selected our case table and several other tables that were associated. Notice that we also included a table that is not related to our case table, our case status value. This may be important to us for our study that we want, but also bearing in mind that it doesn't always relate to our case table. So from here, we have done our 6 tables that we've exported to our case subject area. But what about the account subject area? What happened to that? Notice it has aligned itself with the subject areas from our Safyr environment to subject areas in our Irwin data model. So through that, I'm going to switch to our account information. And once again, I just stack them all on top of each other. I'm going to use the circular layout function again to be able to lay it out nice and neatly. And then use the zoom to fit option to be able to see all of our relationships in our Irwin data model. So once again, there's 6 case tables that we've pulled in and 6 account information tables that we've pulled in. We can switch between our logical and our physical view. Notice the name changes that have occurred from our logical names to our physical names. Notice the way we can actually use the Irwin tool to be able to manipulate any particular view or layout that we would like. We can relay out our relationships to look better. We can manipulate our diagram to align things in a more concise way we would like it to be viewed in Irwin. And let's just move 1 or 2 more tables into alignment. So we are using our Irwin tools capabilities to manipulate our diagram to be reflective of what we would like our diagram to look like when we get it into our Irwin portal environment. But once again, I noticed that we've got 6 tables in our case information and 6 tables in our case information. What happened to all those other tables or entities that we said were parents and children? Notice they've been included in our Irwin model, but have not been included in our diagrams. And this is important to understand that we will be able to use them. We can understand where they sit in our environment, and we can understand how they relate to our particular objects. So if we take something like our asset, and we can then drill into our relationships, and we can see that our asset to case relationship exists, and that was the reason why it was pulled in. Notice all the other tables that have been related to as well have been pulled in. So other tables that are not part of any of our diagrams but are sitting in the group of tables that we pulled into our environment. So it's pulled all that metadata in. Once again, I'm just going to quickly drill into our particular entities. So let's look at our entity information. And our entity for our account, we will notice pulled in the definition, which is the information that we had in our Safyr environment, which was the extended information stored at account level. We can then navigate our way through each of our entities and understand the particular information that we're looking for. We can go to any of the information as we would use in the Irwin tool. I'm not going to explain each of the functions in our Irwin tool. This demo is about the interaction between Safyr, Irwin, and the web portal, the ERwin Web Portal. But also noticing that we can drill into the attribute information, and we have pulled in information about our logical information and the logical name, the parent domains. So any domains that were in our Safyr environment that were pulled from our Salesforce environment have been pulled into our Irwin data model. The data types have been pulled in, information about primary keys, and any indexes that were pulled in. So we've got all the information pulled in, and if we had any definitions associated at our attribute level, they would have also been pulled in. So all this information that has been extracted out of our Salesforce environment, put into our Safyr environment, we've subsetted the information to what we want to focus our exploration on, and we've pulled it now into our Irwin data model. And through our Irwin data model, We can then go and do any changes to our Irwin data model. We can manipulate it. We can create new subject areas. We can then create any particular objects, new objects in our Irwin data model, and to be able to manipulate it. And as an example, we are actually going to go and create a new subject area, and our new subject area is going to be called account full information. So we're going to go one step further in our subsetting of information. We're going to quickly go into the properties of that subject area, and we are going to go and select anything to do with our account tables. So our account tables that we pulled in, our 6 account tables that we used, we're going to pull them through, and this time we're going to say any ancestors, parents, or descendants, children. For those particular objects we're going to include in this particular diagram. And we're going to add them all to our subject area. And you will notice everything pulled in to our diagram or our subject area. We're going to drill into the diagram. We're going to say auto-populate. So anything that's in our subject area is going to be included in our diagram. And we are going to close down our subject area editor. Notice that once again stacks everything. So we're going to use the capability of the Irwin tool to be able to lay out our diagram, and notice how we've been able to pull everything into our diagram. But this particular diagram looks a bit busy, so we're going to change our layout options, this time to orthogonal. We can explore all the various options that we want, and once we are satisfied with our diagrams, we can say, okay, we are happy with that diagram. We can also go into our diagram editor. We're going to rename this diagram because ER diagram 3326 is not very meaningful. So we are going to name it the same as our subject area, and we're going to call this account full information. And we're going to now have our Irwin model now been upgraded from what we exported from our Safyr environment with more meaningful information for our extract to our portal. Before we can go any further, we need to save our model, and we're saving our model to our file so that we can perform our export to our Irwin Web Portal environment. This brings us to the third part of our demo, where we export this to our Irwin portal. And to be able to perform the export, we need to go to our Irwin Web Portal export functionality in our Irwin Data Modeler. So we will follow through the Web Portal Publish. And this is going to open up a Irwin wizard for us to be able to do the export. And in our wizard, we're going to define first off where our Web Portal repository resides, the username and password to be able to access them, where we want this information to be stored, so where this model is going to be placed in the portal, and do we want to publish it to a configuration. Now, configurations are the displays that we will see when users access the Irwin Web Portal. So yes, we want to publish it, and which particular configuration. We're just going to use the standard published configuration. Notice the ability to attach files to it. So when we export, we can attach a particular file if we want to. And the last one is, do we want to wait until the export is finished? Yes, we're going to wait until it's finished before we actually can return back to Irwin. So to finish the process, we press the Finish button, and now this starts our export into our Irwin Web Portal environment. It goes through several phases where it actually saves it as temporary files and generates the model as it will be stored in the Irwin portal. And when it's finished, it will come back and we can close this export wizard, and it is now being exported to our Irwin Web Portal environment. So let's have a look at it in our ERwin Web Portal environment. First off, we're going to log into our ERwin Web Portal as the administrator, and this is giving us the Metadata Manager view of our ERwin Web Portal. But what is important to notice, we've now created that model in our Salesforce folder and our Salesforce information model. We've also now created a copy of that in our published configuration. So through this, we can see how it's actually pulled the information in, and we can then go and see the information has come in from our Salesforce, it's come in from an ERwin data model, where the data model has come from. All that sort of information is now stored in our web portal. What is more important, I'm going to jump quickly, instead of navigating through it in our Metadata Manager, we are going to switch to what a typical user would see. So let's go to the Metadata Explorer version of our web portal. And we're going to look at the published configuration. And notice the cleaner and crisper screen. Also notice all the abilities to be able to drill into help functionality. So the users can then understand how to use the web portal tool very effectively and easily. But for our particular demo, I'm going to jump straight into our diagrams, and we are going to go and have a look at our model in our architectural diagram. And bearing in mind, if we pulled in lots more models in our portal, we would see all the other models. I'm just going to drill straight into our Salesforce information model that we've just imported. Notice all the tables that it's been pulled in, and specifically the account table. We're going to just quickly go in and navigate our account table and show this particular account table in our diagrams. Remember the diagrams in ERwin that we navigated and manipulated? We've now got them in several different diagrams. So the first one I want to go to is in our account information subject area, and we will notice that we've now landed in the same diagram as we had it in our ERwin environment. So if we go back to our ERwin environment and look at our account information, you'll notice the same layout that was used in ERwin is now being provided in our ERwin Web Portal. But this is not just a graphic coming from ERwin. We can actually interact with it, so we can actually see the properties on our particular objects. So let's have a look at the account entity. And our account entity has a set of information that, account information, so we've got a physical name, we got the description. Remember the description that we saw in our Safyr environment, which is reflected in our ERwin environment, is now also reflected in the web portal. Likewise, the comments, which is the physical side of our model, has also pulled the same information in. And we can see all the information about that particular entity, which model, where it came from, all that information. We can even drill down to our attribute level, so account ID. Notice that the name has come in. The account ID is the logical name, the physical name of ID. Notice the description and comment, or the absence of them in this particular model, because we did not have that in our Safyr environment, because it didn't exist in the Salesforce environment. So it pulls in whatever it pulls through from our Safyr to our ERwin to our web portal. Also the data type information. So we've got all this information laid out very effectively. Notice the relationships that we've got in our environment. Also notice we can manipulate those relationships in our portal environment. But we got a full interactive model, sitting in the web portal. We can even change the display level. So if we want to show it just at entity display level, and we can then go and redraw our diagram just showing our entity display level. And at any point we can go back to the original model as it was imported from our ERwin data model. So we can interact with this particular model in the web portal in a very powerful way. We can also show things, change the notation. I like information engineering, but let's say user prefers the IDF1X standard. So they can view it in the IDF1X standard. They can switch on the labels for our relationships. So our relationship names can be displayed. So a good way of being able to explore our model in our web portal. Please bear in mind that each of these particular tools, the web portal, the ERwin data modeler, and the Safyr tool all have a very rich functional capability. And I've just scratched on the surface of each one of the functionality. The context of this particular demo is to show you how they all work together in a uniform way. So that really concludes our demo of our Safyr environment, passing the information through to our ERwin environment, and importing it into our ERwin Web Portal environment.